Dorkening and all affiliated shows are not intended for anyone under the age of 18. The following may contain discussions or scenes that have adult situations, graphic violence, nudity, strong sexual content, and graphic language. This show is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. We have very active lifestyles. It's not all wandering the countryside aimlessly or scaring passing motorists. And we all love a good cup of joe. And there's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. Bold, robust, delicious. It's coffee that can wake the dead. With over a dozen different roasts and flavors, Deadly Grounds can satisfy the most finicky of coffee addicts. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
Persons under 18 will not be admitted.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another killer episode of Still Toking with. Yeah, well, you already know who I am. I hope.
You got a bruise on your head?
I got a goose egg though.
Yeah.
I do got a little goose egg, yeah.
Got to be careful with the head, right? Right, Jeffrey Mark?
Well, I'm always careful with that.
Yeah. So anyway, the voices are in my head again as usual. But the man, the myth, the legend, the flashy one himself, Mr. Jeffrey Mark.
Hello, everybody. Hello, cats and kittens. Hello, co-hosts. I love you both. I love being here. I don't think I say that often enough on the air. I love this show. And you're going to love this episode because not only do we have a wonderful guest, but we're all here this week because we didn't have Jeff with us last week, and he's here and we love him. You want to meet him again. You want to say hello to him too. Our buddy, Jeff Holman. Hello, Jeff.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, I'm back. I drove over 2,000 miles in the last 3 weekends.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a little psycho. You know, I got home late last night from closing the camp up in Maine. Unfortunately, you got to do that. You know, pull the docks. I was not prepared for a morning of 33 degrees, though.
Ew.
I didn't think it was going to get that cold up there. I woke up and couldn't find my pecker when I had to pee.
I was just gonna say it gives a new meaning to word trinky dink.
You know? Oh yeah. It was a little brutal. But anyway, enough about my little pecker. Let's bring in the other little pecker. No, I'm kidding. No, we had this fine gentleman, I'll use that term, sure, on a couple of years ago, I think it was, wasn't it? I think it was a couple of years ago.
Beginning of last season, I believe.
Was it beginning of last season? Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't think we got enough information out of him, so we had to have him back. Is that why he's back here, or are we just
No, he called me and said, if you don't want me to kill you in your fucking dreams, then you better have me back on the show.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. I didn't know if it was because he's a double glover,
Well, he is. He's
right.
He's a sharp tool.
He's a sharp tool in the shed.
I wouldn't call him in the shed, but maybe in the boiler room.
Oh, well, hey, things happen in sheds too. Trust me.
No, they do.
And he doesn't have a little pecker.
How do you know?
I know
Fucking
it.
dirty old man. Anyway, let's bring him right in. Kevin Redzinski, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. And Jeffrey knows because Jeffrey is one of 3 people on my OnlyFans. So Jeff, he does have a very comprehensive knowledge. But thank you.
And it's cheap at twice the price.
You see that? And for you.
Geez.
So yeah, it was about a year ago. And it's kind of a victory lap for me because last time I was here, I was spilling stories and somebody said, hey, you should write a book. And I said, well, I am writing a book. And you hear that a lot, from people. And I understand it because I was saying it for a long time before I finally knuckled down to do it. But now here we are a year later and it's actually done, and available.
Right. And just so you folks watching or listening to this later, or even watching this later, all that information is in the show notes up above or down below, depending on where you're watching or listening to us. But Kevin actually did write a book.
Yes.
Now you see why we said the sharpest tool well, I wouldn't say in the shed, but a sharp tool, So I just wanted to throw that cover up there real quick.
Thanks. Yeah. And it sharpened every tool I had writing the book. The book, and that's why I like this forum too, because of course we'll get into nightmare stuff, but it doesn't necessarily need to be, nightmare. I fucking broke my brain writing the book. I started because there was some confusion. I could tell there was a disconnect at the conventions because people just didn't know who I was, what I did. It was the kind of job I joke with people. I go, if you already knew me, you would know me as a guy who did a shitty job trying to be Freddy on a TV show. But because I didn't do a shitty job, you didn't even know I was there. But once people do delve into the nightmare stories in the book, they'll see just how much of it, I had taken part in. But I would write a section about something that happened, and I don't want to sound like I'm dancing around stories to push a book. I mean, we all know I'm looking to sell a book, of course, but I think some of it, if you read it not knowing where some things are headed, it's just a better read, and there's a lot of sort of like aha moments that you don't expect. But it's just a quick, for instance, there's a piece in there about something that took place on Freddy's Nightmares involving some gunplay. And when I was writing just behind the scenes stuff, I wrote that section and I go, yeah, but that was really intense for me. And then what started to come up is why it was intense for me at the time. And that's because of previous events, shortly before I got involved in Nightmare. And I was like, I can't now. I'm in the middle of this piece about Nightmare. I can't go, oh, the reason this was so intense for me was because this happened. So I just decided to start with, some pretty traumatic events that happened when I.
So speaking of traumatic events and things like that, you did send me some pictures, and you, like you mentioned, you had an aha moment and some traumatic, stuff. And Mr. Jeffrey Markwell liked this photo, but I would say this is probably traumatic and an aha.
Yes, it was. And that was, you know,
There's an easier way to get a bris, you know.
That I know, and stop sending me messages because I understand. I already know about that stuff. So that actually is kind of, you know, that was on Nightmare 4, and you do. I mean, if you've been involved in any kind of filmmaking at all, I mean, you do to some extent just kind of lose your mind. I mean, your entire life goes out the window. You're consumed with a schedule that only people on the set are sharing with you because. And I note in the book at one point, I realized I had been awake at every hour of the day or night at some point during 1 week, over the course of 1 week. So the only people really sharing that with you, it's a shared experience of other people on the set or on the production. So you do get, you know, you get a little bananas. I mean, and that was one of those moments where it was just like, you know, and I have other pictures too, where you could tell I'm just a little, you know, I'm dancing a little close to the edge. And it was, the funny thing was, not funny thing, but one point that I make a lot of times is that working on Nightmare 4 was like boot camp, and working on Freddy's Nightmares was like day camp. It really was much lighter. There wasn't the same grind. There was a grind, but it just didn't seem as relentless. It seemed constant, but not just a pounding, just a constant pounding. And a lot of the atmosphere and where we were shooting and the circumstances during 4 were just so grueling. I mean, and something else I mentioned, and I say it, and I preface it by going, I don't say this or mean this lightly in any way, shape, or form. You know, I saw grown men cry. I mean, I remember a guy just breaking down and, you know, within his crumble, if you will, he's mentioning that he's not seeing his kids. He's not seeing his wife. You know, his dog didn't recognize, like, you know, he just had a meltdown. And the thing about it is you also sort of trauma bond with people because you are going through the shared experience. And, you know, so-and-so's having a bad day. You know, give them a break. Maybe you pick up a little bit more of the workload. Maybe you tell them to take 20 minutes, go out and take a nap, you know, whatever. Like everybody on 4 and also on, and especially on Freddy's Nightmares were just, for me, and everybody's on-set experience is different. But I just found people to be pretty kind, considerate, accommodating, and a lot of ball busting, man. I mean,
right. Well, I'm going to bust your balls real quick before my co-hosts start jumping into questions and picking your brain. For our viewers and our listeners, we've mentioned Freddy, you know, Freddy's Nightmares. We've mentioned Nightmare on Elm Street 4, but we haven't really mentioned exactly what it was that you did.
On Nightmare 4, you know, I got the call, and even beyond that, before that, I did about 3 weeks on Heathers and also did 2 nights on the Blob. And there's some bits about that in there. And I got the call from it was Central Casting. And it was just another job, you know, show up as an extra on Nightmare on Elm Street 4. So sure, go down, did it. I got home that night and there was another phone call. And they said they want to look at you as a possible stand-in and double for Robert Englund. Would you be available, you know, for a month, 2 months? So any steady work, you know, I was like, of course. So it was just the weirdest fluke. And a lot of this stuff, there's this sort of, I don't want to say divine intervention necessarily, but there's clearly almost like something else at work. I go in, you know, I show up on set on 4. And I recognize some of the people I knew from Heathers, and I'm not there a couple of minutes, and a PA scoops me up and brings me into a room. And there was Rachel Tillali. There were some people I later learned were from Wardrobe. And they're just kind of eyeballing me, talking to me. I could tell they're feeling me out just to see if I'm an asshole kind of thing. And then they start kind of giving me a little bit of wardrobe, you know. And one thing that happened was they handed me the hat. Now, what's interesting is at this point, I had not seen any of the Nightmare films. You know, it's just the way it played out. I mean, I went to movies as a kid, saw it. We snuck in to see Halloween 3 times the week it opened, you know. And so it's just that by the time the Freddy stuff came along, people were driving in my circle. And once you started driving, then it was all about go out, pick up girls, drive around. It wasn't so much going to the movies as much. So I went in with no real working knowledge of the franchise. Of course, I had an awareness of Freddy. But at one point, they hand me a hat and tell me, just put it on. Don't think about it, just put it on. So I just put it on. And for whatever reason, I felt it was a little off. So even though I'm right-handed, I happened to grab it with the left hand to kind of pull the brim. And I could sense there was a reaction in the room. And I was like, well, I don't know, what the big deal about that was. And now in retrospect, of course, because the gloved hand would be the right hand. So the only hand you could really do it with. And then I get sense they were looking for something more, but I had no idea what. And they said, well, just stand there. And I was like, well, I've been standing here the whole time. And then someone said, like yesterday. And I was lost. And the only thing I could think of was I turned my left foot outward and it gave me a little bit of a slouch. And bingo, that's what they were looking for. Now, the funny piece about that is the reason I did that particular thing was at one point I'm out in California and, I'm living like everybody else, hand to mouth and the whole thing. I'm in a supermarket late at night. And I happened to be standing in an aisle, and I was standing like that, but I was totally unaware. And out of nowhere, this girl pops up and asks me, are you a dancer? And I was like, what? And before I have a chance to answer, she points at my foot, and she says, you're turned, which I guess is something dancers do with their feet. Yeah. So again, before I have a chance to answer, she goes, I dance, and proceeds to just go through a whole ballet thing in the cereal aisle. And I fall in love, and like we're off to the races. It only lasted 2 weeks because she was completely out of her mind. But from that point forward, I'm going to tell you what.
You couldn't tell because she was dancing around the Lucky Charms, man.
Yeah, but here's the thing. From that point forward, I was standing like that every chance I got. I'm waiting for some other dancer to walk up and point at my foot. You know what I mean? So it was just the only thing I really had when they go, just stand like you did yesterday. And I'm like, what could possibly, and I go, and that was it. And then also, again, the luck thing with me in a pair of Chuck Taylors and Robert in the boots that they had him in, we were the exact same shoulder height and exact same what they referred to as hat height. So when I had the hat on, he had the hat on. The tip of the hat down was the same height, and then the shoulder height, and then I had that slouch. There's more to it when it comes to actually doubling for Robert, which is what I did on 4. So they shot a bunch of stuff where you'd see Freddy in the distance running. A lot on 4, they didn't use as much of it, but they did shoot it. There's one setup they did with an arm rig where it's just my arm in this glove rig. And, I say that sometimes they'd yell action and some people just turn fucking rabid. All they knew, time is money, film's rolling, go, go, go. And people are yanking on this arm rig and they're turning and they're bending. They're trying to get me to do something with it. It doesn't really do. It was 3rd unit. So the director, this is his chance to get in there and contribute. So he's trying to get his piece out of it. And I liken it to, I said, it's like if you got up to pass the potatoes at Thanksgiving dinner and then you stopped halfway across the table and then had to stand there for an hour. Because that's really what was going on, is I was shoved in this thing. They want me out of the shot, of course, and out of frame. So I'm hyperextended in every joint that's involved. There was something pinching at my arm. At one point, my arm goes completely numb. If anyone has seen, there is a documentary out called Never Sleep Again. And a lot of the footage in there was stuff that Bill Forsh had gotten, and he worked with the effects crew on that. And you can see Bill is holding my hand up in between takes because I could not hold it up. I couldn't. And I grounded out, and that kind of solidified me as, that I'm willing to get in the trenches with everybody and do the glove stuff. So then I started doing glove inserts. And that film wrapped I was fried. So I kind of unplugged for a little bit and literally unplugged, like unplugged my answering machine. I was just like, because a lot happened on 4. There was an instance I could have been killed. I didn't find out till after the fact. And then, of course, the grind that I was talking about. So I kind of go off the deep end a little bit and then decide, I got to get it together. And I plug the answering machine back in and I'm getting calls that they're going into production on Freddy's Nightmares. So I go over there. Unbeknownst to me, Robert had told them, you got to try to find Kevin because he most likely saw the amount of times that Freddy was in the script, and knowing the promotion and everything else he was tied up with on 4, there was just no way he was going to be in that studio in the Valley, as often as Freddy's in the script. So I go over, sign on, and I would say 80% of the Freddy that you see on Freddy's Nightmares is me. I did the glove inserts. Anytime you see Freddy and you don't see his face, it was me. So Robert would come in, every 10 days or so and shoot a bunch of close-up stuff for all the different episodes. And then they would cut the footage of the two of us together in such a way. It was a big concern for Robert because they had tried using somebody else on Nightmare 2, which was a disaster. And then they pulled Robert back on board. And now, at the point of Freddy's Nightmares, 4 had hit big. There was already 1, 2, and 3. So he's kind of crafted this thing, this character into, at that point an icon. And, now look at what it's become today. And he had to kind of turn the reins over to someone else. I mean, I was to be Freddy when Robert wasn't there. So his concern was it just looking like cheap, cheesy TV stuff where it's just so obvious that it's not him. So he sat with me and gave me a tutorial regarding the glove for about 45 minutes. And that's when my naivete regarding the franchise really served me, because had I been a big fan of the films, to be sitting with Robert Englund, trading the glove back and forth, and him tell me, no, like this, do that, don't do this, do this, don't do that. And one of the things that he had said was, and if they ask you to do any dumb shit with the glove, and they will, he goes, don't do it. He goes, defer it to me. And he told me somebody on the set that he said could always get a hold of him. He goes, if there's something that looks really shitty that they're looking for you to do, he goes, don't do it, and have them reach out to me. They know that, I'm keeping an eye on this stuff. And with the guidelines, the guardrails, I say, that he gave me, knowing that I was going to work within those particular set of movements, he was able to establish a consistency when he did take the glove, because he knew, that he's not going to overdo what I'm doing, or he's going to fall in line sort of with a lot of the similar stuff. I say that the comparison is kind of like 2 bartenders making a margarita and it both taste the same, So it was really about keeping that consistency.
Yeah. No 2 hand jobs are the same. So
no, that's true.
That's
Jeffrey
why the pace
can tell you
is
that.
different. Yes.
Jeffrey, there's a big difference between Jeffrey's right hand and left hand. Not that I know.
I'm left-handed, so it's much better with the left hand.
Is it? Well, sometimes they say if you use the opposing hand, then it's like a stranger. But I don't know. This is what I'm told.
yeah. No, it's awkward.
Is it?
Can I ask a question about your career, Kevin, or are we going to talk about hand jobs? Thank you.
Okay.
A couple of questions. You've mentioned how difficult 4 was. That everybody seemed to be so stressed out. Now, I've been doing this since dinosaurs ruled the earth. Every film is stressful. Every film is intense. Every film was a lot of hard work. Why was this one stressing out professionals this bad? What was different about this as opposed to any other? Was it the heavy, intense special effects stuff, or was there something else going on?
It was actually the physical atmosphere itself. And to give you, for instance, the church scenes, the big church fight, took place in a warehouse where we had no air conditioning. It was the middle of a heat wave. Mick Strawn had convinced them to forego walls on the set. And he hung big, long, I think it was called Dubettine maybe at the time, but big, long black curtains, and then hung the windows, stained glass windows, and lit those. So there were no walls. You were kind of like in and out. So there's no real established perimeter, so to speak. It was the set was dressed just like a church. So you have rows upon rows of church pews. And a lot of it, I guess I would say, would all trace back to budget and lack thereof. So people start to just improvise. And one of the things they improvised for the church fight scenes, which is taking place in this huge warehouse, we're all sweating our ass off, is they were bringing in contractor bags of tree leaves. So just bags and bags of dried out leaves. And what they would do is just before we'd roll, they would throw on these big fans and dump contractor bags into the fan, which would blow them all over the place. They'd cut the fan, they'd roll film, and you would just see, if you look at it, you'll just see these ominous things kind of just floating. So, okay, that's the Leafs' big, 5 seconds of fame, and the Leafs close up. Now it's gone onto the floor where it's going to get stepped on and ground into dust. And then they're going to kick the fans on again and blow more leaves in. So now this dust is blowing everywhere, and everybody's sweating around. So now the dust is sticking to you. It's dark as hell. And it was really just the physicality of the atmosphere itself that was really, I don't remember a day working that we weren't sweating our ass off. Just the day I was in that armory, we were in a heat wave. I was sweating my ass off because, there was a big thing with the doors because they're moving big stuff in and out all the time. It was impossible to air condition any of these spaces. And another, for instance, and this goes back to budget, a cheap way to establish that sort of fog hanging. And this apparently was drastically cheaper than blowing in with the fog machine and you got to juice it every 5 minutes. They had 55-gallon drums of mineral oil and they would pump air. And I don't know if it was hot air maybe, but they would pump air, aerate this mineral oil. And as a result, this slow, thick fog creeps out of these things and starts to just fill the area. So now the doors are all closed because they don't want the stuff to go out. Again, no air conditioning. And now this is reaching way back in the age of people, but mineral oil used to be the number one ingredient in, Jeffrey, enemas. Enemas. Mineral oil enemas. So the first day there with this stuff, one of the guys said, bring a mask or something tomorrow or a bandana for you. I go, what are you talking? He goes, because they're going to be really working with that fog like a lot. And I'm like, okay. He goes, you're going to be huffing like mineral oil. He goes, the next day, you're just shitting your brains out.
You're the first person who has ever mentioned there's going to be an enema. Wear a mask. I've never heard that one before.
So it really was. And it was also the nature of how quick they were moving and then some of the setups and the danger involved in the setups, which would just
Was there not a union representative on the set or was this a non-union film?
No, I'm kidding. It's one of those like semi-union kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like there's some people there probably were union and some were. It was really very different than what happens today. There was a big Wild West element to a lot of what was going on. And, the story where I could have been killed was really just a matter of just brief oversight. And, it wasn't really talked about much afterward. Keep moving, and if I said, look, I could have got killed. The idea would have been like, yeah, but you didn't. And we have a film to make. So, it was a lot of, and a majority of the script wasn't written because it was during like a writer's strike. So they were kind of working around that where a lot of the cast dialogue is improvised in that film. And that when I realized it later kind of allowed me to give a couple people some grace, because I don't get into it as much, but I had a bit of a, I don't want to say frenemy, because that includes the word friend. But there was someone on set I didn't necessarily get along with. But I was able to realize, looking back, it was the stress of what was going on. And for the same reason that I ran into a little bit of issue on the set of The Blob. Now, nobody gave me any trouble on The Blob, but nobody gave me much of anything on The Blob. Like, nobody walked over. Kevin Dillon was great, but it was really just in passing. But here I show up. Nobody introduces me to anybody. I kind of look like I'm the same type as a few of the cast members. You know, the director and people are talking because I'm standing. But, you know, all these actors, though, they look over. Here's a guy that kind of looks like he's the same type as me. He's talking to the director. They have him in front of a camera. You know, everybody was sort of in fear for their own job at any given time, you know. And with the script on 4 not fully really written, I would imagine they were just getting surprises every day.
You'll have to forgive me. The word unprofessional is screaming in the back of my head.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm a loyal union member for a half a century or more. I don't get that anyone would put up with those conditions, because when the budget is that tight, it means you guys weren't getting paid tons of money either.
Right.
And
now you're getting it.
No, I'm not only getting it, I'm getting angry on your behalf that happened to you.
You know what? Thank you. But, and I do appreciate that. And that's kind of a lot of what unfolded for me as I was writing this, you know, is there were moments where the process for me with the writing, because I'd never written a book before. You know, I'd written some comedy stuff. I'd written some plays. You know, I had done a couple of article things that I pitched for people, but I never sat down and really got into, you know, edit after edit and rewrite. And I would write something and think it was done, and later go back, and as I reread it again, another memory kind of falls out of my head. And then another.
That's what writing is. Writing isn't writing, it's rewriting.
Right. So there were times.
I say that's the mineral oil.
Yeah. That was turning on my head. So some of it was coming up, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, you know, I was put through this, or I was put through that, and where was my head at? I'm like, I must have been scared to death. And there were times deep into the writing process where I thought I was near done and reading through things. And the whole point is to write it in a way that other people are going to feel what it is you felt. So it caused me to feel it again and again. There were nights I was sobbing on the sofa because something I hadn't thought about in how long I was now looking at through a different lens, like you're doing now, where you go, wait a minute, you know, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense when it comes to like humanity and how you treat other human beings. Like, and it goes back to that, you know, everybody wants in showbiz. And if you don't want to do it that way under those conditions, well, you could go on home, because there's 10 guys that are willing to do it. And I take me 5 minutes to bring them up.
Was the series easier than the film?
Yeah. Much easier. It wasn't on such a big scale, and everybody was far more, although a lot of the people from 4 knew each other from other films, and a lot of people on Freddy's Nightmares knew each other from other films, and of course the Nightmare stuff. And then I knew everyone from 4. So there was a bit of a camaraderie anyway going into it that I didn't have going into 4. My first night on 4 was in the junkyard, and I had no idea. Nobody told me who to talk to. Nobody told me who to show up and check in with this one, check in with that one. The way
your assistant director was not doing his job.
And that, I would say, is definitely part of it. When I consider what their job was, and again, getting back to the circumstances, they had set up a maze of actual crunched cars that Mick had tied together with cabling. And some of them are 4 or 5 high. The wind blows, and you're hearing glass breaking on these cars, and you're like looking at these things. We had just had an earthquake the week before, so it was spread out like a campus. There wasn't like all the trailers were here, and you know, all the honey wagons are over here, catering's over there. it's like over behind that pile of cars is the props guys, and way over here behind this building is makeup and wardrobe. It was like a campus where everybody was all over the place. And again, it was very much a go, 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 go. So you had to kind of jump on the merry-go-round.
The last 3 minutes, you've mentioned 17 union infractions. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing that goes that way. Just congratulations to you for surviving it.
Thank you. And if you get it, I'll send you a copy of the book. And when you read, even
I'd love to.
Yeah, I read through and I go, I'm here. I'm like, holy. And there's a wealth of things that are equally as traumatic and life-threatening to happen before I even set foot on the nightmare set.
Do you think the helter-skelter of the filming actually helped the film? As crazy as it was, do you think it might have made the film better?
I think one thing that come from it was you were dealing with people who wanted to be there. You'd have to want to be there to put up with it. So there was a drive to do this thing, so to speak. And I do think it comes across, because I just watched it again. Well, actually, it was probably about 4 or 5 months ago that I watched 4 again. And I do get, because I was there on the set for the church fight, and I watched the film and I go, it feels like and looks like what we went through, so it did come across in the film. I can't remember anything in particular that may have been where somebody had a bad attitude or somebody decided, somebody checked out and was just trying to get through it. And that comes through in the film. Like, I don't see anything like that. And I don't recall anything like that happening.
More passion to do it. Maybe that.
Oh yeah, that
too.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking for, actually. Yeah. Thanks, Jeff, because that's really what it was. People were passionate about what they were doing. Unfortunately, sometimes passion can take the place of precaution. And there were injuries on set.
Too easy.
So you mentioned that. So here's another photo that I want to pop up that you sent me.
Yes. That's the fire-breathing car when Kincaid is running from Freddy in the junkyard. And I have that in color as well. And
he'll sign it for you for a cheap price, folks. Oh, wait, we're not at that part yet. Sorry, keep going.
Twice as much. So I had a little 110 camera that I had picked up on my travels and started to just carry it with me all the time. I put a piece of gaffer's tape over the flash so that there was just no way that there would be a flash, because of course, you look in the stand and it's just ruined a shot like that with a flash from his camera. So sometimes I didn't know if I was going to get anything at all. You know what I mean? And sometimes I didn't. There's some stuff I have that would have been really cool if it was lit, but it wasn't. And, it's just too dark to make any sense of it. But that one, the darkness kind of worked in a way because it's a really cool looking shot. And that's one of my favorite from the whole experience is that particular shot. And I just found a pile of old 110 negatives, which, if you remember, the little sort of orange brown strips, and you'd go to drug fair or the photo mat. And I over the travel, those things, I took the pictures of California. I drove back to New Jersey, then met my wife. We drove down to Florida, tried the show business thing there because I heard that was going to be the next thing because she just couldn't do LA. My acting coach there said, you got to go back to LA. I go back to LA. We're in the Northridge earthquake. We go to stay with her sister in Arizona for about a year, then drive back to New Jersey. And those negatives and those pictures went every leg of that trip and still made it now here back in Jersey. And I would always say, well, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do with these things, but I can't just get rid of them. I go, I just should hold on to them. It doesn't feel right to get rid of it. And now come to find out, if you have those, all you need to do is, if you can do it yourself or you have somebody do it professionally, They either take a picture of the negative lit from behind, or you have it scanned. You put it into something like Photoshop, and you just hit invert, and it develops the picture.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Oh, you're going to be amazed. You're going to.
I'm laughing at all the young viewers out there that are Googling what the fuck is a 110 camera.
Yeah, what's a 110? Well, it was funny because
Photoshop.
Right.
I had it written somewhere, and somebody goes, "Oh, he found 110 negatives," and I'm like, "No, I found 110 negatives." But found some cool stuff that I didn't have, the copies of the photos. But Jeffrey, when you do that, you're going to be amazed, because all I did with one was with my phone. I took a picture of the negative, holding it to the light, put it in Photoshop.
I hate to say this, but there's an app for that.
Is there?
Yep.
Well, this is what I got to find now.
Yep.
The reason I reacted so strongly, you may remember an actor named Pat McCormick, who was 6'7". He was on the Smokey and the Bandit films.
Okay, yeah.
Brilliant comedy writer. And for his memorial service, I took pictures of George Carlin was the host, and a lot of dead people now.
Wow.
And I've got 3 cans of film I never got. I'll do it next. Well, they're still sitting here in my desk. Yeah. I'm thinking I'll never get these developed. Now I know how. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. I Googled it real quick. It popped up. I go, you got to be kidding. But having my experience with Photoshop, I'm like, well, it kind of makes sense. I mean, it inverts. Let me see. And sure, now I need to do it, have it more professionally done, or really set my nice 35 mil up to take the picture. But I was shocked at the results I got just using the phone.
The best way to do it is to put the film on a flatbed scanner and scan it right into Photoshop.
All right. I got to look. I did try, I brought it to like Staples, and I had them scan, and they have a high top, but no, it wasn't. No, it didn't do it.
Your first mistake was going to Staples.
Well, yeah. I was amazed. I go there now. They can never come. They can never get you out the door. They're like, oh, you can come pick it up tomorrow. I'm like, I need 10 sheets printed. What are you talking about tomorrow? So I go, because they have all these orders in front of you. I don't know. But, that's the freaking order is.
Kevin, who's the publisher of your book?
I've been doing all self-publishing.
So Kevin Redzinski is the publisher of your book.
Kevin Redzinski is the publisher. And that was a journey, because if you've written anything, you're going to love this side note. I started very stream of consciousness, and I wrote the entire thing in notes.
Oh.
So no PDF, no Word doc. I wrote it all in notes. So
my sparkly hat is off to you, sir. I've written many books, and you're doing it the hard way.
Oh,
yeah.
It only got harder, because then I shape it. So, paragraphs, everything are great. And there was a woman that I used, Amy Keller, and she formats and she works with submitting stuff to Amazon, because she's very familiar with the process. So brought her on board. I sent her the file. She was going to set everything up, do the little, the page numbers, all that. She sends it back to me, and it looked like hieroglyphics. And I'm like, what happened? She goes, this is what happened. This is what did you type this in? And I went, I typed it in notes. She's like, oh my God. So that started, it was just shit rolling down. It got worse and worse, because then I'm downloading like AutoCrit and Google Doc, and I'm trying it this way, trying it that way. Some of it's sticking, some of it's not. Then I pull on board a guy named Blake Best. And Blake has been riding shotgun with me on this, and I could have never gotten it done without him. He's a big Nightmare fan. The story goes back to when I was just starting to think about getting involved in the conventions again. I'm out walking the dogs with my wife, and that tends to be, I'm just, word salad. I'm just blah, 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 blah. And she's got to let it sort of in one ear out the other. Her head's going to explode. She's, being supportive, what have you. And that was the idea. I was bouncing around that day. We start heading closer to home, and one of the dogs stops for a second, and she goes, what the hell is that? And she sees something in the grass, and it looks like a coin. And there's nothing else around. There's no party debris, no garbage, no dead animal, nothing. There's just this shiny little thing in the grass. And she picks it up, and it was a Freddy button. And she goes, I think this is a sign. I go, it's got to be. I went home. Blake had reached out to me when he was working on Mick Strawn's book about possibly doing an interview for that. So he was really the only guy that kind of was like my way in with this. So I called him, had a conversation. You know, he said, hey, I think there's a place for you with this stuff. We started to talk more and more. I started getting involved in the conventions. Then I realized the need for a book. He's written, I think, 8 books at this point. Blake was plugged in with all that, and I started sending him stuff, and then he'd format some things. But a lot of times I would call him, you know, I'd say, I'm going to send this is done. And then we'd get to talking about stuff, and other things just kept falling out. And he was just as much a therapist as he was an editor. I mean, it was far more than he signed on for. I
really like the cover of your book. Who designed that?
Thank you. That was me.
You're a very talented man, Kevin.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
That's a great cover for the kind of book that it is. I couldn't think of a better cover than that.
Thanks. Yeah, and I didn't send you
dye your hair white.
What's that?
Did you dye your hair white?
Yeah, dye my hair white. Now, you know, here's the funny thing. I was just telling my wife, there's a kid I see over at the Quick Check all the time, right? And I was checking in there late at night to get things because I developed a terrible Zyn habit while this whole thing was going on. Never smoked a cigarette in my life, right? Somebody goes, you tired? Try it. So now I'm over there every couple of days. I'm talking with this kid at 1 o'clock in the morning, tell him I'm doing this book. So now I see him the other day. I hadn't seen him in a while, and the book's done now. So I'm like, bro, I got the book. It's done. He's like, really? I said, yeah, look at the website. So he looks at the website. He goes, that's you? And I go, yeah. He goes, oh, man, you were a good-looking dude. And I was like, I think that's I'm like, is that a compliment? He's like, oh, you were a good. I'm like, were? Well, thanks, guy.
Well,
like,
may I dovetail on that? You are still a good-looking, and I'm not flirting. I'm talking professionally now. You're great-looking. The camera loves you. Why aren't you in LA on a cop? I mean, you're the right age. You have gravitas. You speak well. You're obviously intelligent. I'm like frustrated for you. Why aren't you doing a CSI? Why aren't you on a series? Because you've got everything it takes. What's
I am looking to reinsert, because that was part of the conversation with my wife as well that day.
That was
because what Ben can't get past.
Ben is telling himself jokes that I wouldn't even touch.
The insertion. I think it was the insertion. The
reinsertion.
It was the reinsert. And then the very next sentence was my wife. And I was
that's true. I didn't even catch that.
I was getting all excited till he said my wife. So anyway, sir, you're reinserting and
because you know, rewind even before the book stuff or before I even thought of going in this direction. I worked for California Closets for about 2 minutes as a painter. And I'm at this woman's condo in Atlantic City. And again, doing a thing, talking away, because I'm there for 8 hours, fixing some Murphy Better bullshit, whatever it was for the company. And it turned out she had been in casting in Philadelphia for like 30 years. She was retired. So when she heard some of my stories, she goes, well, why aren't you doing it now? And I said, it's a young guy's game. She goes, you got it all wrong. I said, what do you mean? She goes, remember when you used to walk in and you'd see 100 of your twin brother? I go, yeah. She goes, that's not going to happen now. She goes, you're going to walk. She goes, we dreaded casting 40 and over. She goes, because it's all hair pieces, guys sucking in their gut, guys with cosmetic surgery, guys who don't look like. I go, is that why Andy Garcia's in everything? She goes, that's exactly why Andy Garcia is in everything. She goes, because there ain't a lot of Andy Garcias. So this woman was so on this. I remember I had my tools waiting for the elevator, and she was standing in her doorway going, I'm telling you, Kevin, you need to get back in it. You need to get back in. Now,
because you're a horrible painter.
Yeah, that's the reason that I was with California Closets was because things had kind of run aground a little bit. I had to get some work going. If I would have come back to my wife that day and said, I'm getting back in showbiz, I would have been in my car. It was not the time to suddenly shift gears again.
There was no reinsertion there.
But Kevin,
Kevin, nowhere.
Man to man, come out of the closet and get back into show business.
That's it.
I was waiting for that one.
I know you were, Jeff. I did that just for you, my friend.
No, I'm. That's the plan. That's part of it. Because at these conventions, you don't know who. And I had my SAG card. And here's the other thing, Jeffrey. I'm in New Jersey.
Yeah.
The film industry has moved to New Jersey. Netflix bought Fort Monmouth. It's 300 acres. They're spending $800 million. It's going to be up in 3 years. There's another outfit on the shore of the water of Bayonne called 1888 Studios. They're spending $1 billion. Lionsgate's already in Newark, $125 million. Spielberg shot walking distance from where I'm sitting right now, one town over. So Sandler's been here twice within a year. First with the Happy Gilmore, and now something he's doing with his daughters, some kind of show. So Spielberg, Sandler, these are two guys who can shoot literally fucking anywhere in the world they want to. And they're here because our present governor, this is his last term, and I don't get into a politics thing, but he put in tax incentives that'll be in place until 2039.
Oh, nice.
And all of this was happening, even the Fort Monmouth with Netflix, before the LA wildfires. So it was already in motion. Then the wildfires, it's my understanding that LA's turned into a bit of a ghost town. I mean, I haven't been out there. I don't know.
Not exactly, but the fires made a huge difference.
Yeah.
And not to get into politics, what's happening in the world has made a huge difference. It's becoming better. The incentives aren't here. Governor Newsom is trying to bring them back. But what you need, Kevin, again, friend of friend, is better representation.
Oh, yeah.
And a great publicist. And I can recommend the representation I won't mention on the air. Publicist, mine, Harlan Ball, best in the world.
Okay.
Very good. Yes.
Yeah.
Very good.
It is
Definitely
something that, and the, you know, I don't want to get into too much of it on air. I know we talked a little bit off air, but, you know, the storefront that I'm going to be working with has an obvious connection. And I'm under the impression most likely I'll be crossing paths with a couple of people who are heavily involved in film as well, you know, on the decision maker sort of end of things. And with it moving here and everything else, this is the other thing I noticed too, Jeffrey, is that now, you know, everybody has a video clip of some sort, even if it's just a monologue. And they're just, it looks like some of them, they're just shooting like right in their living room. And this goes up on websites and people are getting work from this stuff.
Hey,
Well,
man,
because what
I'm
happened
sure
was
this is my basement.
during COVID, you couldn't go into anybody's office and audition. So
Right.
everybody invested in lighting and microphones and backgrounds. And I'd say the great preponderance of auditions these days, you don't go into anywhere. They say, send us a video, read this, dress like that, and you have to do it and send it. And so you can audition from where you are, but you've got to be mobile and you've got to have the right people behind you.
Right. Yeah, no, but it does make sense. I mean, I remember going.
Not
I blame it
everything
on the concussion.
Not everything I say is a dick joke. Really, I'm trying to help this man.
Listen, that's why I didn't tell you about my concussion.
But you have a concussion?
I wrapped my head pretty good on a steel pipe today at work. Put me on the floor for about 30 seconds.
You know, back to what I went through with the writing stuff, at the end, you know, I hadn't realized how badly I was just hammering my psyche. And just as I was literally sending in the order for the books and everything else, and things were wrapped up, in a course of 10 days, I lost my debit card, my driver's license, and a set of keys that had 2 fobs on it. One of the key fobs was for a car we didn't have but for 2 weeks. Just the 2 fobs alone is 9 bills. 10 days, because I was just so out of sorts. So my wife is like, it's like you can't even function like day to day. You can't go to the store without losing your debit card, the gym without losing your car keys. She's like, what is, and I started to wonder because, you know, there's a story in the book with a headshot that I took. I had other headshots as a kid, working as a contractor one time, man, these people had big 4-car garage, and then up above was all attic storage space. And they had one of those pull down stair, you know, that comes down. And I was frustrated and I yanked it down hard, and 2 sections come like this and square on top of my head. The one thing
that'll
knocked me right on my ass.
That's why you never yank it too hard.
That's it. Not if it's above you. So it knocked me out. I stumbled backwards into the corner and then slid down in the corner. I had my phone on me. I called my wife and I said, talk to me, for a good 10, 15 minutes. I go, if I stop talking, you got to come up here and, I'm going to be laying in the corner. But I started to debate like early onset dementia, this concussive syndrome, but I was telling myself it just didn't seem like that. And then once I just started to slow down on it and I wasn't having night after night of just sitting and typing trauma, it started to lift slowly but surely. And over the course of the last 10 days, things have gotten much, much lighter. But I was surprised at just how I should have been under some type of psychiatric care throughout the process. And I'm a big proponent on therapy. I mean, at any given time, my family, we have an army of therapists, to be out. And one woman that I've been working with now for like 4 years, I started with her about 2 months before my mother had passed. And there was a bunch of family horseshit around that. Then my brother passed unexpectedly a year after that. And fortunately, I had someone with this perspective that knew me through all these other things. And I missed an appointment with her for the first time in 4 years where I just didn't even remember. So it wasn't like it canceled or I just didn't remember it. And this was with all this book stuff swirling, but I didn't know it was the book stuff. So I said, I've just got too much on my plate right now. I've got a bunch of wellness visits and follow-up stuff, yearly stuff with doctors and stuff. I'm just going to close out. I sent her a note. I said, look, I'm going to step away I've got too many appointments going. I feel badly I did that just to prevent me from doing it again. I'm going to lighten up on the talk therapy for a little bit. And of course, that was the worst thing I could have possibly done because I should have been more involved at that point. So I really did go in it sort of unsupervised, so to speak. And just there's one memory in there and I write it in such a way that I say, this just happened to me. Like this just occurred to me. There was a connection I made with the way I was fascinated with the old Chiller commercial. And as a kid, I would just sit, and I never saw the show. I was too young and it was on too late. But I would sit for hours just trying to catch this commercial in the basement. It was the rec room with the panel walls and the cement floor, and you freeze in the winter. And so I would sit down there in the dark, just waiting for it. It was WPIX out in New York. I would just wait. Yeah, I would wait.
That's what I grew up with.
Yeah, I would just wait, and then it would come. And I knew sort of the cycle when they would start ramping up the commercials. Yep, the Chiller. I knew the whole thing. I can remember my mother called me for dinner, and I'd have one ear, listening down the basement door to make sure I didn't miss this thing. And I went into that particular passage in the book, thinking it was going to be about my feeling on being so obsessed with that commercial, and then my hand being in the commercial for the Freddy's Nightmare series. And there is a connection there, and there is a feeling there that I wanted to relate. But in the middle of all that, suddenly it's puked out of my brain as to why I connected with this commercial. And it brought me back to something from the 3rd grade. And I was like, I literally write in the book, I go, wait a minute. I'm like, a lot of stuff got dredged up in the writing of this. It just happened again now. And then I get into the story of it. And toward the end, I go, and this is a connection I didn't make until 20 minutes ago. So there were a lot of instances like that. There's a big car wreck in there. And I was convinced I was done with that chapter in the book. So I said, let me just go on Google Maps because we have that now. I go Google Earth. I'll just make sure I got the logistics right. And I'd always written it that we slid sideways for 30 feet, caught traction, rolled forward, and hit a pillar that was at the entrance to an office building. So when I look at this on Google Maps, right away I see the 2 pillars, but they're up a set of 3 stairs. There's a half circle with 3 stairs and then the pillars. And it all came back to me in a rush. I'm like, there's no way we would have rolled up those stairs. So the car was airborne. I mean, it was the only way that we would have hit that pillar is the car would have had to come off the ground. So it just, the intensity of the accident and then realizing just how much of a close call it was. And that was one. And there were a couple of different instances where I had to put it down for a week and kind of step away and process. Because I'm like, you know, it's kind of gets anecdotal after a while as years go on. Oh, I was almost killed in a car accident. You know, oh, I was almost killed in a car accident. But if you sit down and really start to pick it apart and you realize how close to death you were, and that there are these complete strangers making split-second decisions that most likely kept you alive. I mean, it's crazy. It just really hit me in a way I was not expecting when I sat down and write it.
Well, it sounds like this book is going to be a page turner, and I look forward to reading the copy you're going to send me.
Absolutely.
For our friends and fans on the East Coast, since that's where you are, where did you grow up? Since WPIX, the Channel 11 is a New York City channel. How close were you to New York City?
I'm about, I would
Then,
say on a good
when you were
day,
growing up.
on traffic, I could be in the middle of Manhattan within an hour.
When you were growing up, I meant.
Just add another 10 minutes because I was pretty close to, and it's funny because where I grew up was in a little spot called Bradley Gardens. And the story with Bradley Gardens is there was a horse breeder named John Bradley that was hugely successful with what he did. And his property lined up with Doris Duke. So Doris Duke, huge.
I know exactly where it is.
Acres upon acres she has. So she, in talking with him, says, I'm going to open up a park for people and they could canoe on the canal. And it's going to be kind of like, you know, a recreation area. So he's like, well, this is a great idea, and feeling philanthropic, whatever it is. He says, I'm going to open up some plots over here people can build and stuff. So people built little bungalow houses like you would see down at the shore at the beach. And it was kind of a vacation spot. Then the Depression hits. John Bradley picks up stake. He leaves. For a lot of these people, it was their second home. So then they start living there. The entire time I grew up, which was late 60s, 70s, and mid 80s there, we had fire department, we had a rescue squad, we had no police department. Occasionally a state trooper might blow through, but we had no police department. And I say, if you wanted to run from the law or break the law, you went to Bradley Gardens. So years, and I called it the hillbilly hood, and I would tell my wife these stories, and she goes, you're exaggerating, you're this or that. So now years later, we're married, and my father-in-law's mother passes away. His brother comes up from New Orleans. He grew up one town over, and he's sitting next to me at the repast. We're getting to know each other, and he says, where'd you grow up? And I go, well, you probably know, it's this area, Bradley Gardens. He goes, no, I know Bradley's. That's where we go to cop drugs. And I was like, well, yeah. I mean, it really just was this lawless little spot. And
I've been there.
Yeah. Oh, really? Wow. Bradley's was, yeah.
You weren't buying drugs, though. You were behind the bushes doing something else.
I was going to say he was
I
looking
can
for a corner.
Right? Let me tell you, in Bradley's, there were people behind the bushes. There were people under the cars. There were people under the porch. I remember driving. We'd take the bus to Bradley Gardens School. My buddy gets on the porch, and I'm like, who's that? He's like, that's my uncle. I'm like, why does he sleep on your porch? I mean, like a camper would pop up out of nowhere and be in the back of someone's yard for like 2 weeks. And you'd be like, who's that? I don't know, my father's friend. And then all of a sudden the camper's gone. And like, it was this lawless. The joke I make is if you ever watch a movie where a kid who never gets in trouble gets in trouble. So he runs to talk to his cousin who lives above a bar. The cousin answers his shirt and his wife beat her tea. And there's a woman in the background. And he pulls the kid in and he writes down on a scratch of paper and he hands it to him. He wrote an address in Bradley Gardens. It's like, this is where you go. Yeah, so that's where I grew up, Jeffrey, was Bradley Gardens. That was Bradley Gardens. I left to go out to LA.
So Redzinski, Polish?
Yes, Polish and Irish. My mother's Irish. Yeah, 100%. That was interesting growing up. And this is one of those things that was unpacked with therapy is my mother, flaming red hair, beautiful woman. I remember as a kid going with her. We couldn't go anywhere that men weren't turning to look at my mother. And she came here young, elementary school, and had a hard time. She refused to learn the language. She couldn't blend in anywhere with this head of hair. So when I was in school, in the first grade, they pressed my parents to move me ahead to the second grade. And my mother was not having it because she stuck out in school. And none of her kids are going to stick out in school. They're going to go with the flow like everybody else.
Your mother spoke Gaelic?
She did. When she first got here, she refused to learn English.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow. Did your father speak Polish?
He did not.
You know, Bill Cullen, the wonderful game show host, was half Polish and half Irish. And he spoke both. He plugged into both ethnicities.
Yeah. You know, my father spoke a lot of bullshit, but not. Yeah.
For all of our Polish friends, bullshit and Polish are not the same thing.
Not the same thing. But the one thing it did instill in us was pride in both, especially my mother with the Irish, because, you know, we were the kids that on St. Patrick's Day, you know, we went to school with the pin, with the shirt. There was no way you were going to leave the house without something green on. And then her mother, it was the only one I ever knew. My grandfather had passed early when they got here. Diehard with the church. I mean, when we would go to see her, you know, a couple times a month, you know, as we'd walk through the door, she'd give us a kiss on the head and say, "Did you go to church? Did you go to church this week? Did you go to church?" And you'd be like, "Yeah." And we called her Gaga. We'd be like, "Yeah, Gaga, yeah, Gaga." And if one said no, she stopped the line and looked right at my mother. Like, "Why didn't this one go to church?" So we'd be like, "Oh, he was sick and this and that." All right, well, you know, go twice next week. So, but yeah, it was the whole thing growing up over there was really very bizarre because it was the kind of place that you had to give the people a reason not to kick your ass, like on the daily. And
so you wouldn't want to be showing a picture like this.
No, that one. Well, actually, that was a lot of. That almost looks like it could have been taken in a church at Bradley Gardens. That one was right after I told that story about the arm rig, and I really, as I left set that night at the end of the day, like I didn't know if I caused like real damage. So that picture is the very next day, and that set piece I'm standing on is where we shot that arm rig. The tennis racket I have between my legs was from the set that was Debbie's gym. And it was my weird sort of fuck you to whatever entity seemed to be hanging around, just grinding people out because I had my hand back and my hand's fine. Fuck you. And you're not going to grind me out. I'm going to get through this thing. And that was one of those that's a Polaroid that somebody took. And for years was just not, that's got like spray paint on it. It was in my shop for a little while, you know, not a lot of it because it was, you know, there was a cost involved, but people were snapping every now and then somebody would just walk over and hand me a couple of Polaroids. And thank God, you know, God bless it, they did, because that's some of the pictures that I have now, you know, that were these on set.
You just did something very interesting to me. Brought up in New Jersey, living in New Jersey. You just gave a West Coast fuck you.
Really? Oh, it is?
Yes. That's
West Coast. I like it that way better. Yeah.
This is East Coast fuck you.
Yeah.
This, which I can't do anymore because of arthritis. What you did with the two knuckles, that's how they do it on the West. That's it. Yeah.
I don't know why that feels more powerful. I don't know what it is. And actually,
doesn't it?
I did for the show. I have that shot of Britney Spears where that's what she's doing. She's got the thing. Yeah. So the other way I like is when people go like this.
I can't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the.
I like that one.
Yeah, and then the other where you reach your pocket, you go, "Dude, I was at the store. I got you something." You know, and they were on sale. I got you too. So, you know, and it was funny because I told my wife, because there's a lot of pictures like that. If you go on my website, there's a couple pictures where I'm flipping off like this. And I said, you know what? I think I'm going to make that my thing. Because you hear Gene Simmons talk now. And he goes, if I had any idea I'm doing this shit when I was going to be like 75 years old, he goes, I wouldn't have psyched. I got 80 pounds worth of, you know, costume on. Things are blowing up. I got to get in makeup. He's like, I look at you too. And I'm like, they got it right. You know what I mean? U2 puts on a shirt and goes out and plays. So I'm like, if you're going to get stuck with something, I'm like, well, I'll make it this. That'll be my greeting maybe.
Well,
so then, you know, because that make it fun.
If you look like Gene, you needed the makeup. You don't need it.
Yeah, right. You know, that was my first concert was
No, I don't like Gene. I don't like him as a person. So
yeah, it's just, there's a lot of weird. Any of that sort of just, I don't know what it is, but the never seeming at peace. Just constantly grasping more and more is something that I guess somebody wrestles with. I don't know. But growing up, that was a big thing. That was big. That was the other thing about Bradley Gardens was tons of music, just tons. The minute somebody's parents would go shopping on a Saturday and, the older kids were home, the window would go up and they'd stick speakers in the window and then play. I can remember when my next door neighbor, because we had fairly long yards, it was a little weird the way the one half of the street was cut. So you could play Frisbee and football right in the yard. And I remember sitting as a kid, much younger than them, listening while they were tossing a football around and playing Ted Nugent, Double Live Gonzo, the week it came out. And me just sitting as a kid listening to this, like, whoa. And then my brother had given me a Zeppelin tape. And I used to listen on with cassettes and the headphones because with 5 kids in the house, I have 4 brothers, so 5 all Irish twins. You couldn't have 5 stereos going at one time. So my father bought all these headphones, and I had heard the song Money on the radio and was just obsessed. So a friend a few doors down, his parents were very cool, very hip, had a lot of cool music. And they were very, he had a lot of freedom just in the sense that he could go into their music collection. You know what I mean? Whereas my father had his Linda Ronstadt records that were polished to a T and you dare not look at them the wrong way. So I'm at his house once and we're looking through the cassettes and I see Pink Floyd on the cassette thing. And I knew his parents were kids. So I go, can I borrow this tape? He's like, sure. So I brought it home thinking I can't wait to go home now and groove to Money. But it wasn't Dark Side of the Moon. It was Wish You Were Here. So I put it in and I put the headphones on. And to that point, it had been, Kiss, Ted Nugent. I bought a Steppenwolf album because the cover looked cool. So it was all rock, rock, rock. All of a sudden, I'm hearing these effects and with the guy walking down the hall and buzzing through doors. I'm like, whoa, what is? And it just really got me into that sense of music that just builds that tension slowly. And then they'd break through with a riff or one of the song intros. And I was just like, whoa. And
that's why I love
it melted your mind.
Yeah, it did. It really. And I make mention actually in the book too of this song. I had 6 cassettes that I was playing all the time. And it was the Jane's Addiction, Nothing Shocking, and just come out. On the hair metal end, I was well into Rat. So I had 3 Rat tapes. Then I had the X.
The 3 they put out.
Yeah. X Live at the Whiskey, David Lee Roth's Skyscraper, which when he did a publicity stunt on Hollywood Boulevard at the Tower Records on Sunset Boulevard.
Yes.
I drove by it for a week and I just saw this this tarp hanging over something in a corner of the store. And I was like, what the hell? All of a sudden one day I turned on the news and he's rappelling down the side of it and they have the big billboard with his Skyscraper record. So I was like, holy, that's what that was. That and then Prince, Sign of the Times, because that song in particular, I worked at a budget rent-a-car, delivering rental cars to the rich and famous. And there were a bunch of guys there that lived in Compton, Watts, Inglewood. And I remember them saying when the song would hit, they'd always jam it. And people were talking, and they were like, I just can't believe how in touch he is with what's literally happening right now, in my world. Because there's the one line about start smoking reefer for the very first time. Now I'm doing horse. It's June. And the one guy looks at the other and he goes, that's Jonathan or whatever, the one guy's cousin. They knew guys that sounded like they were right out of that song and they were living it. So that tape was another one that was significant. But music's always played a part where there's certain songs or bands or a sound I can hear and it brings me right back, very visceral sort of reaction to it.
It's true for most people, actually.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, now I don't feel special. I felt special for a moment.
Yeah, I was trying to knock that shit right down, Well, because I'm sitting here wondering, what? No Rush? No Led Zeppelin? What the fuck? No Doors? You listening to other stuff?
You know what? The Doors I came too late. the Doors I came to just before I moved out to LA, because so much is LA driven. And then again, maybe it was an ADHD, I don't know. Like I would just submerge myself in something. So I remember literally taking purple microdot every night for a week, the week before I drove out to LA, and listening to the Doors and watching Where the Buffalo Roam with Bill Murray. Because I'm like, this is it. I'm like, I'm going to go take on the country. I'm going to take on the world. I'm going to hit the road. This is just going to be this crazy. My original plan was to get on a plane and fly out and take acid on the plane, so that when I got there, I was just like, whoa, which thank God.
That's a bad idea.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
you can't escape the plane.
Yeah. It also would have been the first time I flew.
Oh, Jesus.
So
that's a double bad idea.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
no,
that's a bad trip waiting to happen right there.
No,
Yeah, it is.
And with purple dot, you don't even need the plane.
Yeah,
right?
That's it. It would have been awful. But I just romanticized that sort of complete craziness and that chaos sort of thing.
Now you tell that story, and 10 minutes ago you were wondering how you were losing shit.
Oh, I know, right?
I mean, I'm just saying.
So I'm going to say you should feel special because we are almost 20 minutes past our normal showtime.
Oh, wow.
So you should feel special.
I do.
Yes, I've been getting texts from my wife.
Mr. Jeffrey Mark hasn't looked at me and said, I got to use the bathroom. And Mr. Holman hasn't said, will you hurry the fuck up? I'm hungry.
All right.
But on that note,
sure.
Mr. Holman, any last questions for our awesome guest?
Yeah, actually. I mean, I think Jeffrey Mark was absolutely correct in the fact that, you're at a pivotal point in your life where you can go and you can get back into your acting career in a different aspect. What role do you want to play?
I would have to look at things. I think the easier question would be, what wouldn't I want to do, kind of thing.
It wasn't supposed to be an easy fucking question.
Yeah. You know what? Sort of
easily.
I would say that sort of on the road, Kerouac, Where the Buffalo Roam, Gonzo, Hunter Thompson type adventure where you just don't know. In the book, I'm very happy with because it kind of plays out that way. There were a lot of things that happened to me before I got out there that as I read it back, I go, this kind of plays out like one of those movies. So more along that. The one thing I don't really like is and I know, Jeffrey, I know you'd mentioned a lot of the NCIS stuff and that a lot of that, I feel it's almost just this constant re-traumatizing for people when they watch that stuff,
So I think we should write a script where 4 old guys just go on a fucking murderous rampage.
Well, no, I had something because I started getting into this train graffiti, right? Because now it's on freight trains, the way it used to be on subway trains. Next time you're at a crossing, watch these freighters going by. And the awesome thing about it is some kid in bumfuck Idaho could throw a piece up and it goes around the country. And there are Facebook pages that trace it. So my idea was older guys who always wanted to do that and then decide they're going to start going out and, putting stuff up on freighters and then have a terrible night where they're chased by police. One of the guys falls, gets his arm cut off by the train, doesn't make it. And
that's you.
No, I made it the whole way. Then the other
we'll cauterize it.
Then the other ones jump on one of the freighters to escape the scenario, and the next thing they know, they're in that world, which they're totally unprepared for. And it opened with one of the guys seeing the guy without the arm at a little league game, like after it's all happened. You know what I mean?
The flashback.
So you open with he's at it and he looks and he goes, oh, there he is. Like, and the guy waves to him. And then it brings back the memory of how it all happened. And then, of course, they're all away from their family, the missing person stuff, the people they run into on the train line. So maybe we'll have to hash that out.
I kind of see you in a VW bus traveling around the country, handing out purple microdot to people just so they could be happy.
That's it. It's, you know what? Everything's come right back around, man.
You know something? Your guys are laughing. That's a pretty good idea.
Yeah. Just dosing people.
Calm the
Because
fuck
there's
down.
100 ways to go with that. That's a TV
Oh, yeah.
series.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
yeah.
is.
Right? Yeah.
Well, here's what's happening. I heard with the Netflix thing is that somebody goes in with a great script and they go, can you turn it into 8 episodes? And supposedly that's how, I haven't seen it, but that's what happened with Ozark.
Yeah.
Is that it started as a great script and they go, can you turn it into a series? Because they're they're starving for content.
Right. We just can't let you write the script because it take you a fucking year.
I know. And I'll have breakdowns and meltdowns and I'll start losing shit.
Right?
I'll be like, where are you? I can't drive my car. I lost my keys.
And Mr. Jeffrey Mock will get his book in the mail and go, why do I get a set of car keys?
Yeah.
What's going on
I
here?
I wish it would save me $900. And then I just have to sign it, send it back. I couldn't believe it. Because I go, what's anybody going to do with my car keys? And somebody goes, you know what those things are worth? I go, what are you talking about? They go, each one of those fobs is like $400 or $500.
Oh, yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But Costco has a deal actually for like less than 2.
Really?
Yeah. So look into Costco.
You know what my problem, though, is the car's a lease. So when I turn it in, I have to have the real thing.
They don't know.
But that's not for another 3 years. We only just got it.
They won't know the difference. They give you one that looks just like the one that comes with the
Really?
car. Yes.
Holy shit.
Costco.
3 years, it'll turn up.
This guy's
Either
so
that
lucky.
or just total it.
Right. But great addition, guys. This guy just saved me a bunch of money.
Okay?
So, Mr. Jeffrey Mark, any last questions?
I mean, we've talked about so much. How large is your penis? Is something that comes to my mind. But I now that everyone has turned purple and covered their faces, I am serious, Kevin. It's time for you to level up. Do it. I support
I'll reach out. Like I've got to get contact info to get you the book. So whoever it is that you think it would be in my best interest to get in contact with, I'm open.
Okay.
Easy,
No
man.
question. Just I'm feeling, and buy this book, folks. I'm an author. I know how important this is. Buy this book. If you're a fan of the Freddie enterprise, how can you go wrong buying this book? And listen to all these wonderful stories. And
it's www.freddy-2.com.
And I'm sure Ben is
in
about
the
this
show
thing. 'Cause
notes.
it's all in the show notes above and below.
Awesome.
That's right.
Great,
That's
man.
right. So,
And Ben, when's the next time I'm seeing you? What's the next show that
you know what? I don't fucking know.
Right. No.
It's not like you're that far either,
I know. That's why I figure we'll cross paths at some point. I mean, this weekend I've got New Jersey Horror Con in Edison.
Right.
So that's a big one. And
which
then,
you didn't plug. So, folks,
Yeah.
Just
this
did.
weekend.
Yeah. And then
this
also
weekend-
October 17th, 18th, I'm at Carlisle Comic-Con. I leave Carlisle that night and I fly to Paris, Texas for the next day at the Red River, or the river runs red. And all of it also on Facebook on Freddie Deux, Deux, and that info is always up there.
I mean,
you need to do the Hollywood show in January. We talk about that too.
All right. Yeah, no, we will for sure. Yeah. Now, once the story is out, I'm going to have an easier time with the conventions because, again, it was just hard to know who I was and what I did,
Right.
And once people know the story.
What we got to do is we both got to get a really good agent that can book book signings, and the two of us, the two books, should go on tour.
Yeah.
Like you and Jeff.
Yeah.
Oh, and if we can get to the West Coast, Mr. Jeffrey Mark, but the Freddy and the weed smoking zombies could be a really cool draw.
Yeah. I mean, well, we're going into holiday season, so I know I'm going to start setting up a bunch. You know what? You could reach out to, I don't know, maybe subject matter might be a little bit touchy, but the Barnes & Nobles book on a local sort of basis. When it comes to going to a bunch of them, that's
I will say, we went through Palmetto Publishing when we self-published, and they put us on 17 websites, including Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
Yeah.
So Barnes & Noble
and that worked out.
I guess. I don't know. I mean, we get like,
I don't
you
know,
know,
books. Well, books are tough. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody and their fucking penis is writing a book these days.
Yeah.
See, I got lucky because there's that built-in fan base. You know what I mean?
Right,
Because I
right,
do
right.
talk to people. My daughter's, long book. She's with this guy like 6 years, and we talk about that kind of thing. But he's got something that he's just working on. I'm very lucky in that way that there is this sort of built-in fan base, and I'm the first sort of new thing in 30, 40 years from the franchise. So that's a blessing, because not every book has that behind it.
Right.
Okay, it's 25 after the hour. Now I have to go to the bathroom, and Jeff is starving for dinner.
So,
And I have to actually go look at
what the
a
hell?
job I might be doing for my buddy who's opening up a hobby store.
Nice. So, Kevin, where can people find you on social media?
It would be Freddy Deux, spelled Deux, and that's on Facebook. Freddy Deux as well on Instagram. And then the website, which has the book and some other merchandise. I got some call sheets on there, some 8x10 stuff, the signed Funkos, and that is www.freddy-2.com.
Nice. Mr. Jeffrey Mark.
As it's spelled on your screen there on Facebook, Jeffrey Mark Showbiz on Instagram. I think it's at Jeffrey Mark on LinkedIn. And if you enjoy us and you enjoy Ben and Jeff, there we are. 2 sister shows now. Ooh, gosh, we're busy. Ben has produced Jeffrey Mark Plays Ella. GBE presents Jeffrey Mark Plays Ella. Every week I play Ella Fitzgerald's music on a theme, give you insider stories and insights behind the music and her life. And we have a 5-episode special arc. GBE presents Jeffrey Mark Plays Merman. Ethel Merman, 5 episodes about her recorded music, her shows, and her life. Look for those on all the same platforms here. And I'll let you know when there's more stuff than that. But Jeff Holman, where do we find Handsome You?
Stilltoking.com. Don't search me individually. You won't like what you find. No, I'm just kidding. Just go to stilltoking.com. You'll find out everything there is to know about Ben and what we're doing and me. And I think we just kind of wrapped up a couple of big events that we did. I want to give another shout out to, Jeff Witham up in Maine for what an incredible first year with his Paranormal and HorrorCon up in Augusta. Never seen anything like it for a first year. So, you keep up the good work. I keep plugging them because I want to be there next year. You know what I mean?
We're already locked in for next year.
Yeah, I know, but I don't want to go, oh, well, No. It was awesome. I mean, he did just an incredible job, and so kudos to him. It just kind of made the last couple of weeks that have been a little bit rough on my personal end. I'm not going to get into that, but between that event and the Steel City Cannabis event, everything is fucking just awesome. But it'd be nice to be home for a couple of weekends in a row. I'm looking forward to that. So, and that's about it on my end.
So, like Jeff said, stilltoking.com. You can find out everything you want to know about us. Definitely go check out Kevin at some of the upcoming events. Just give a shout out to Mr. Jeffrey Mark. If, the sparkle soothes you. But in all seriousness, to all our veterans and first responders, we want to thank you for doing what you do so people like us can do what we do. Stay safe. We'll see you next week. We're out of here.
Have a happy.
Thanks.